Dr. Murray. You didn't hear it at the time that Dr. Murray interacted with the security staff and the staff at the Holmby Hills property. You didn't hear it from Dr. Murray when he encountered members of the paramedics squad, paramedics Seneff and Blunt. You certainly didn't hear it when Dr. Murray encountered Doctors Cooper and Nguyen, who were on a life-saving mission. You didn't hear it when Dr. Murray talked to the detective, and you certainly didn't hear it during Dr. Murray's interview in this faux documentary, faux reality production, wherein Dr. Murray says, I don't feel guilty, I wasn't reckless, I didn't tell them about propofol because they never asked the question, and it wasn't important. And where Dr. Murray at that point says he feels betrayed and entrapped by Michael Jackson. Yipes. Talk about blaming the victim. Not only isn't there any remorse, there's umbrage and outrage on the part of Dr. Murray against the decedent without any indication of the slightest involvement in this case. To hear Dr. Murray say it, Dr. Murray was just a bystander who sort of came upon a scene and was put in this situation because of everybody else's actions other than himself, whether it be members of the family, whether it be members of AEG, whether it be Mr. Jackson or anybody else. Those are factors which cause me tremendous concern, because the essence of probation is a recognition that someone may have done something wrong, some responsibility, some remorse. Why give probation to someone who is offended by the whole idea that that person is even before the court? You can't have probation when there isn't an acknowledgement of rehabilitation and responsibility. And regrettably, Dr. Murray doesn't have any of them. Dr. Murray certainly is statutorily eligible for probation. I looked valiantly for efforts to satisfy myself that while Dr. Murray was legally eligible for probation, he was suitable for probation. And I really didn't become convinced I could find any. Dr. Murray is eligible for probation. The court declines to grant probation in this case for a host of reasons. And in making that decision, I acknowledge that Dr. Murray has, throughout his 58 years, provided services to the community and has helped many individuals. But I also acknowledge that he unquestionably violated the trust and confidence of his patient, Mr. Jackson, on a repeated nightly basis. Michael Jackson, as a patient, was vulnerable because Dr. Murray put Mr. Jackson in a position where Dr. Murray was responsible for the very life of Mr. Jackson. Dr. Murray engaged in a sophisticated scheme to obtain propofol through insidious means by lying to the pharmacist, to concoct a story, by not keeping records, and by allowing his personal life to interfere with his professional responsibilities. At the very time that people are depending upon Dr. Murray to be candid with them regarding Mr. Jackson's medical condition, Dr. Murray is lying. He's lying to the AEG people, he's lying to Mr. Ortega, he's lying to the insurance carrier, and anybody else he can, and he's engaged in personal matters while he should be paying attention to his patient. Anybody who takes an objective view of what was going on here has to come to an ineluctable conclusion that Dr. Murray abandoned his patient. And this is not a simple one-off occurrence. This is an unacceptable, egregious series of departures from the appropriate standard of care, which undermine the physician-patient relationship and which are a disgrace to the medical profession. An honorable profession which bears the blot, the scourge of what happened here. So we're not talking about a single isolated mistake. What we're talking about is a gross continuing deviation. So for those factors, the court makes a determination that Dr. Murray is not a suitable candidate for a grant of probation. The request for probation under the rules of court is denied. The question then becomes, what is the appropriate period of incarceration? The court has many options, including hybrid-type sentences as authorized by the Realignment Act of 2011, and straight sentencing. This court does not have the legal authority to actually send and imprison Dr. Murray in state prison. I do not have that legal authority, and I certainly am going to follow the law in that regard. The legislature of this state signed a Realignment Act that declares certain offenses, while felonies, not to be served in state prison, and involuntary manslaughter is one of those. I do not have that legal authority. I must determine the appropriate sentence, and in making that determination, the court is guided by a triad of possible sentences that the court can impose: 2, 3, or 4 years. The court no longer has to weigh what are called aggravating circumstances or factors versus mitigating circumstances or factors, but has to give a statement of reasons. The court has determined that the appropriate term is the high term of 4 years imprisonment. I do so because, once again, I find that Dr. Murray abandoned his patient who was trusting him. His patient was vulnerable under those circumstances, having been administered potentially dangerous drugs by his medical provider. Dr. Murray's course of conduct extended over a period of time. Dr. Murray repeatedly lied, engaged in deceitful misconduct, and endeavored to cover up his transgressions. He violated the trust of the medical community, of his colleagues, and of his patient. And he has absolutely no sense of remorse, absolutely no sense of fault, and is and remains dangerous. It's easy to say, oh, well, Dr. Murray's a medical doctor. He's a smart, sophisticated man. He does not have a criminal history. He may not be licensed to practice medicine in the future, although that has nothing to do with me. I have no authority over that. The fact remains, Dr. Murray is offended by that patient dying. And I don't have any idea what will prompt Dr. Murray to do or not do something in the future